Hey, what's going on, my friends, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Victor, and today's video is going to share with you 5 things I think you should know about the upcoming new moon on October 21st, 2025. It's a new moon in Libra, and is bringing with it a good energy I think you're going to welcome with open arms. It's bringing with it an energy of harmony. It's bringing with it an energy of balance. An energy of culmination as well, of all of your efforts, a lot of your hard work, the inner work and outer work you've been doing in the last few months, in particular during the eclipse season. This is finally the end of eclipse season and the beginning of the results of doing such an accelerated bout of inner and outer work. Theme number 1, spiritual transformation. Us human beings, if we're honest, are pretty thick-headed, pretty caught up in our patterned, conditioned way of thinking and feeling and acting. We're like puppets, unfortunately, on a string, led around through life by our subconscious mind, our unconscious shadow, our conditioning, our traumas, and things like that. But we do our best. We have glimpses of lucidity and presence and consciousness, and it's kind of a balance, obviously. But sometimes the astrology can really bring up to our awareness a lot of that conditioning all at one time. But to really get us to wake up and smell the roses and to recognize that we've been kind of off track, sometimes we have to experience various types of challenges in our outer life. And you may have been going through this. I'm not saying I'm predicting this now. I'm saying you may have been going through some version of that, whether it's a breakup or something to do with your job or whatever the external event was. It oftentimes can trigger our safety. It can affect our sense of safety. It can affect our sense of self-worth. It can affect our sense of identity even, who we thought we were. All of these things, sometimes all at once, can suddenly kind of be feeling unstable. And the combination of those 3 elements of our psyche feeling like we don't know what's going on with our safety and we don't feel worthy and things like that, it's crazy. It can be a really maddening experience. And the good news is, it doesn't always have to take some kind of really huge event, but usually something will happen. A disturbance falls into our life and it creates this upheaval in regards to these things I'm sharing right now. And it's the worst. Whatever your version of it, it's like the worst. I have a good friend of mine, and one of his deeply rooted things is like love and finding love and attracting love and feeling loved. Mine is safety. So yours, it might be a combination of the two, but nonetheless, it might have been a challenging time is what I'm saying over the last few months where these themes for you have been coming up and being affected. Now, the good news is the silver lining and really emphasize with this new moon is that always leads to a spiritual transformation, a deeper understanding, a deeper sense of self, a deeper, more lasting sense of safety, a newly formed, more accurate identity, a radical transformation in the self. And in the end, it makes it all worthwhile. We don't want to go through that again, most of us, and that's life. But the point is, if you've been going through a hard time this past few months and you relate to any sort of the angles I was sort of sharing with you, just rest assured, and you might already be experiencing this, it leads to a worthwhile benefit, a transformation of a spiritual nature. And that might, ironically, the idea of a spiritual transformation can seem kind of abstract and of little consequence, and yet it's the most fundamental core level transformation we can experience as human beings, and it does positively affect all areas of life. But it might have required you to develop a different relationship, a higher level, more conscious relationship with your safety, with your worth, and with yourself. So some of you watching this right now are in this. You're still in it. And that's okay. But this new moon is going to start to bring with it insights, clarity, a sense of progress, an awareness that some of the things that you may have been going through are in fact really leading you somewhere. And they're molding you into a greater, more aligned, more conscious, more authentic version of yourself. Number 2, I wrote down eagle vision, where, sometimes life can kind of catch us off guard and it can kind of suck us into the minutia, the ups and downs of everything, your finances, the ups and downs of your relationships, the ups and downs of how you feel each day. Sometimes you're high, sometimes you're low, sometimes you're in between. It's all random, it's all chaotic. And when those 3 pillars, you might say, the self, our safety, and our worth, get kind of triggered, it can oftentimes put us into like a fight or flight mentality where we're trying to now control the inevitable fluctuations and ups and downs of our life. But that quickly is realized to be completely futile and a waste of our time and just ineffective completely. So after, not succeeding with this sort of mode of operation, that's where the spiritual transformation and the elevated consciousness comes in. We adapt, we evolve. That's the good thing about us human beings. You can press us into a corner. We're going to find our way out. That's how we are. It's in our DNA. It's in our biology. We're not quitters. We're not a species that just like rolls over and dies when things get hard. We might complain and have a hissy fit and struggle, but we always find a way to adapt. And in this case, the spiritual adaptation might be like stepping back and observing these ups and downs of all the different areas of your life from that eagle perspective, where you realize from up here, it's all fine. Yeah, there's a wave crashing over there, and there's something going up and something coming down, but it's all part of this thing. And within this wave, there's stability. It reminds me of this thing I saw the other day online about like the Bitcoin trajectory. I talk about it a lot, but it's such a cool such a perfect contemporary metaphor for life, believe it or not. And if you focus on Bitcoin, it's up and down, very bullish, very bearish, they say. But if you watch its trajectory, it's actually this pretty predictable, nice upward line. And that's kind of how your life is progressing when you're on the spiritual path, when you're doing the inner work, as I know you are if you're watching a video like this. And it's one thing for me to just say to you, but you might start to see that graph, so to speak, in your day-to-day affairs. You might find yourself sort of stepping back and in your own way finding, like rediscovering your center. Sometimes we can get thrown off our square. And then once that happens, usually in life, we resist, we devolve into old, unhealthy, outdated coping mechanisms, and which makes things worse, obviously. But eventually we find this center. And for you, it might be you just wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm going to start going for walks every morning. And then you find these walks to be like, to bring you this sense of inner balance and inner peace, this acceptance. It's not that things are all going to be perfect. You might have a lot of loose ends right now, but you might find yourself relating with them again from that like eagle vantage point more so, just naturally, again, in your own way, where even though things are kind of like up in the air, you're finding that you are more calm, you're finding peace, you're finding balance, or not. Or you're not doing that at all, but you're realizing you need to create that, and I'm sure you know how. This will be a theme. Balance can be found during this time. And it's not going to come from all the things finally working out perfectly as your mind wishes. It's going to come from like this stoic, grounded wisdom and awareness that, as Alan Watts says, life is wiggly. It is only our limited minds that attempt futilely to impose right angles and lines and structure and order. There is order. There's a higher order in this, what seems like chaos. And you might find yourself naturally just floating up there and seeing it from that place, and then consequently, thankfully, experiencing the peace and tranquility even sometimes that can come from recentering yourself in a neutral place. Number 3, another big side benefit of this natural adaptation to maybe the previous stress of your life, you might start to find that you're seeing through the beliefs, the thought patterns that are not yours, were never yours to begin with, but simply handed to you as a young child, and you just took them, put them in your pocket, and began walking through life with them, living them out, playing them out, falsely identifying with them as actually being part of your character. You might start to, from this ego perspective, see like, oh, this is not something I agree with. This is not something that resonates. This is not me. And you might see where it came from. It's so fascinating to me how sponge-like we are as children, and how many beliefs are floating around that we just sort of take on, and it can be kind of confusing sometimes. It can lead to a state of mistaken identity, basically. I'll just give a kind of a contrast here. And it can go in both ways. It can be helpful or it can be detrimental. A good buddy of mine, when he was younger, he struggled to get good grades. And he said his parental figure would sometimes say, like, you're so dumb. I can't believe you're doing this. You need to wise up because you need to make it in life. And this sort of belief that he's not intelligent just stuck with him. And it's been a struggle for him. But he's finally waking up to it because he's a very smart guy. He's very intelligent, very wise, very evolved, old soul type dude, but has just been infected by this belief that was just sort of given to him by a frustrated parent, trying to do their best and look out for them, albeit in a very poor and ineffective way, not knocking on the parental figure there. But that's one thing. Been a struggle, an Achilles heel for this poor guy. Another friend of mine, similarly, he was in high school at this time, and he also thought of himself as not being very smart. And he always got, consequently, mediocre grades, maybe C's, B minuses here and there, D's, couple of F's, things like that. Well, one day he turned in a paper, and to his surprise, it was he got a perfect grade. And the teacher came by and said, "Wow, you are really smart. Did you know that?" And he was like, "No." But he took that on. It just so quickly, he took on that belief. He was like, "Oh, I guess I'm really smart. I didn't know that." And then he went on to get a 4.0 grade point average because of that belief. So you might be finding that there are certain beliefs that are just not serving you, like friend A there. I have my own. When I was younger, I failed swim class, believe it or not. I was the only kid in class to fail. In fact, I remember it was at the end of all the different, it was at the end of like the several sessions, like the 12th session or something. And all the kids and I were standing in a line, and the teacher called me up first, which I thought was awesome. I thought, yeah, that makes sense. I thought I was like a hotshot swimmer. And they handed me this little piece of paper. And then I stepped to the side, and then they went on to say, and everybody else gets a plaque. I was the only one to not get a plaque because I was the only one to fail swim class. And I to this day, I can remember just like the emotional sting, because I went from thinking I was like the best swimmer in the class to the only kid who didn't fail. So I cloaked myself with this identity, this belief that I am a failure. Even when I think I do a good job, there's a good chance I'm mistaken and I will always fail. Luckily, this is something I worked through years ago, but it's an example. And how liberating was it when I finally realized, oh my God, I freaking failed swim class. Who gives a shit? I can swim fine now. I swim every day in my pool. It's no big deal. I don't need to worry about that. I don't need to identify with that old belief that was given to me by a teacher, and also myself, obviously, is my own conclusion. But nonetheless, it doesn't serve me, and it's not empirically true. Nor are many of the things you say about yourself that are probably limiting you, probably preventing you from even attempting doing things you want to do. Because what's happening is your spirit is coming back online. Your higher self is sort of hinting that you could do this. You would be excited to pursue this thing over here. And then these old beliefs are like, oh, no, you don't. You're a failure. You're dumb. And it's like this, it can create this inner conflict. But another huge benefit of these like spiritual dark night of the soul type of experiences, these eclipses in the past tend to bring on, it can finally like shake us awake, shake us from our slumber, and elevate us to a new perspective where you can finally see through these beliefs. And they very easily and naturally sort of fall away. You don't have to do anything necessarily. It's more the recognition that this is not me. And then within that, there is freedom. There is just relief from having to carry those heavy, toxic beliefs around. And also the freedom and the confidence maybe even to pursue the things that you've been putting off. Because the real you can do this. The real you is the one who wants to do it. Number 4, shifting gears a little bit, managing your energy. You know, sometimes powerful astrology can make us fatigued. And it can seem logical because there's a lot of things going on in our life sometimes all at one time, plus our inner process. And it can just make us like fatigued, like mentally, you know, decision fatigue, mental burnout, physical burnout. Sometimes in the past, I would sometimes catch a cold or something when I was going through this. And for the longest time, I personally would like wait for the energies to lighten. I would kind of wait, like, oh, when will I feel better naturally? And then eventually it clicked with me that maybe this is kind of happening for a reason. And it too is a teacher. It too is shedding awareness on how I choose to spend my time, what I choose to think about, what I allow into my consciousness, what I allow into my body, into my day. And this fatigue oftentimes is just a symptom of some of that being out of balance. So, and it can kind of happen abruptly where you're fine for a while, then all of a sudden it's not fine. Staying up till 3 a.m. watching, Breaking Bad, binge watching it. I love the show, by the way, but maybe 3 episodes before bed every night, it's not serving you at this time in your life. And it's starting to cause your sleep to be poor. And then you're waking up sleep deprived, and that's causing you to gravitate towards too much caffeine and junk food. And you're in this vicious cycle. So this fatigue will come as a blessing to say, hey, let's do an inventory here. What's working and what's not working? And the good news is when this fatigue comes, you can feel it. You can literally feel, because you'll be kind of like, your battery will be kind of low maybe. And every little activity, you can see what it really takes out of you or what it gives you. It's more obvious, you're more perceptive, and therefore you can make more conscious choices. And eventually this little bout of fatigue will lift if you even relate to it. And now you're set on a new path with better patterns to really optimize yourself. After my awakening, I was fatigued for years. And the first few years, again, I complained about it. But eventually I realized, you know what? Over the years, the fatigue helped me clean up my diet and balance my sleep schedule. It sort of forced me to meditate and to learn how to regulate my nervous system. I have now rhythms in my day where I take time to relax, and then I take time to charge up and do stuff like I am now. And there's much more awareness and mastery. And I would have never really been motivated or incentivized to do it had I not had a real reason for it, which was the fatigue. So you might find yourself naturally choosing to improve your health, your mental health, your emotional health, whatever it is. And the good news is these new habits, they can stick because you'll naturally see the benefits they have. And it's also a good time to let go of the old ones. You might be extra motivated. You might have exactly the amount of motivation you've been waiting for to ditch whatever bad habit is sort of taken away from your finite amount of daily energy. And finally, number 5 is inspired by a tarot deck, the Archangel, the Ascended Masters tarot deck I picked up many years ago. Oftentimes my insights about the energy it's like a perfectly represented by a tarot card. So in this case, it's this one. You can do it. You can do it is the message. And you might finally start to realize that you've always had in you what it takes. And what I'm trying to say here is this is a more grounded awareness of your power rather than what can sometimes happen is we can have energies that make us kind of inflated and like overconfident, overly ambitious, which there's value in that, but it can sometimes like backfire and get us into a little bit of trouble. This is more of like a slow building of like almost like memory, like remembering like who you are and what you are, which is so much more than this temporary character and personality with its neuroses and traumas and good and bad experiences. You're like more than that. And at the beginning, if you recall, I mentioned spiritual transformation, and one of the biggest ones, again, it's like this refining of your identity, more so based upon like what you really are. And you might just start to like actually feel like an old soul, like a soul that's been through a lot, even though you probably have, even in this little incarnation. Beyond that, you've been through a lot, you've learned a lot, you've mastered a lot. And this is a lifetime where you finally, it's like so cool because we get to start to like wake up to that. And it's not like we're like fully like awesome, masterful people yet, but it's like, maybe it's like the beginning of recognizing your power and the beginning of progress, of a type of confidence that isn't so easily shaken by the fluctuations of your life. You realize like who you are at the core, been there, done that, seen that, dealt with that. It's not that much that can faze you. And you might finally start to like own your power. And it's cool because it's like, it's almost like when you have real power, you don't have to flaunt it. You don't have to rush into anything. It's like you just know it's there. It reminds me of this conversation I had with a friend of mine a little while ago named Kyle Cease. He's a comedian, real funny guy. You should look him up if you haven't heard of him. And he was saying that one of his breakthroughs, this is like years ago in Sedona, but one of his breakthroughs was he used to meditate a lot. He would live in Sedona and he'd meditate, I think, 2 hours each night, he said. And he said earlier on when he began, during meditation, he'd sometimes get like an idea, like a creative idea or a download or something. And then when that would happen, he would stop what he was doing, stop meditating and quickly write it down as if that was the last of him, as if he was going to lose it or something. And he said after a while, he stopped writing it down because he realized he is the source of these ideas. And there is no shortage of them. He doesn't need to like grasp them too tightly in fear of losing it, because he is like this ever replenishing source of all the ideas he'll ever need to live a life that is awesome and perfect for him. And that's kind of like the vibe I'm trying to share with you here. Not this inflated, I can do anything type of like newbie mentality. It's of like having been through enough and slowly realizing your true soul wealth, your true soul power. And that in of itself it's delicious. It's so wonderful, and it's so wonderful because it's something you earn. It's something that doesn't just happen. It's not something you read in a book. It's not something that's given to you. It's not something that you can even get in a short span of time. It's like through the years, maybe decades for some of you, going in and out of your shadow, reclaiming these lost parts of yourself, ridding yourself of these old beliefs, taking these leaps of faith, witnessing your manifestation power, you start to develop this true power. And this true power is not something that's going to just leave. It's not something that ever goes away. It just continues to grow. And honestly, the more challenging things you go through in life, which we all will at times, it's like the bigger it gets. And then it doesn't even matter really what happens, does it? Because we know who we are. We know we got this. We know we can do it. And from here, now, you can set forth on this new chapter that might be opening for you. As you come into your power, suddenly you start to see what you're capable of doing. You no longer feel trapped, even if you sort of are. You no longer feel trapped. And with this I can do it attitude, you'll naturally start making progress. It's a wonderful, wonderful starting point to begin a new journey. Even if it's towards something that's big and lofty, you might finally start to believe in yourself enough to take the day-to-day action steps to make it happen. So with that said, thank you so much for watching. If you do still feel kind of stuck, if you still feel like you're not really experiencing a lot of these benefits that I'm sharing here, I have something that I really think might help you. It's a somatic release breathwork ceremony. It's something I've guided people through, thousands of them over the years. It's very, very powerful. In fact, I don't recommend you do it very often, like once a quarter, once a month max. It's an hour-long breathwork ceremony that can help you release stuck emotions and reconnect with your power truly in a very real way. And anyway, it's free. I'm going to leave a link down below to check it out if you'd like. And with that said, have an amazing day, my friends. God bless you all. Peace.